Oh, you there, Adam? Oh, well, it looks like it just made it for this moment. So, how's everyone doing? We are now here for another episode of the Baseball Insiders. Welcome to the offseason, everybody. It feels good to be here. The Dodgers defeated the Yankees last night, and we now got Adam. Look at that. How we doing, Adam?
What's up, everybody? In classic New York Yankees fashion, my whole screen froze as the show was starting. So you could say that I made 3 errors in a row in the 5th inning of a World Series game that decided the outcome. Thank you for joining us, everybody, on the Baseball Insiders. I bet a bunch of you showed up to troll me today, and if you did, welcome to the show. You've picked a good one. But if not, we're obviously going to be talking. Yes?
All right, I will absolutely add to this now. Zach Manassian officially, he will be the Giants' general manager. I just received confirmation. He is the hire under Buster Posey, so that is officially a thing.
Well, there we go. And I know that some of you were going to ask about that. We've got a ton to address. We were trying to just have a World Series recap show. Where do the Yankees go from here? Where do the Dodgers go from here? And then the offseason had to really get started in earnest today against the odds. So we're going to talk about a whole lot of things and obviously wallow in my misery a little bit. The questions are already firing. We've got people asking about, Juan Soto. What do the Dodgers have to do this offseason to stay at the top? I mean, can't you folks enjoy a World Series for 2 seconds before asking about how to repeat? Apparently not. Either way, we'll talk about it. Thank you for joining us, Robert Murray. After all of that whirlwind, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's the offseason's not even 24 hours old, and we've already got movement. I was at the gym naturally when I found out that Jorge Soler was being traded to the Los Angeles Angels. I know we'll be talking about that here in a little bit. I do feel bad for you and having to go through what you did in the World Series. My sincere apologies and condolences go to you, Adam. I hope you're doing okay today. But I am ready to break this all down. We got an absolute load to talk about. I do have a pretty full notebook, so everyone's kind of stay tuned for that. But Adam, how are you doing? How are you feeling this morning or this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, feeling shitty, but also feeling fine. Hey, look, they're down 3-1 in the World Series. They were probably not going to come back from down 3-0 to win the World Series. But what you don't want to do is blow a 5-run lead in the way that they blew a 5-run lead. So we recommend everybody, as the offseason gets going, the best part about the Yankees blowing a 5-run lead in Game 5 is that it's now the offseason, and there's no better time to subscribe to the Baseball Insiders. Subscribe here on YouTube, on all podcast platforms, 3:30 Eastern every Monday, Thursday. Subscribe to the Moonshot, too. That's our weekly baseball email newsletter where the fan-sided MLB team, including the one and only Robert Murray, break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. The Discord is the place to be, either in the rumor mill or the all-star tier. We are going to be working on ways to give our all-stars a unique experience, but for now, priority responses in the chat. We got a couple all-star questions heading into this show regardless, but I see your current comments and questions and things that you want us to talk about. We are going to address everything that we got to address, including the future of both the Yankees and Dodgers. But yeah, that 5th inning yesterday, look, I've accepted that the Yankees were not going to win the World Series after falling down 3-0, but without some real malfeasance, in both Game 1 and Game 5, you could say that they should be heading to California right now, up 3-2, instead of watching the Dodgers celebrate on their home turf while New York played. What are you doing, stadium operations staff? Either way, I have never seen an inning like that 5th inning in my entire life, let alone in the World Series. The Anthony Volpe error would have been the most egregious error in any other World Series inning, and it barely cracks the top 3 in this one. Nobody covers first. Aaron Judge makes his first error of the season on a fly ball right to center field. At that moment in time, I thought it was over, even though no runs had scored. Where does that all land, whatever that was, on your hierarchy of all-time painful World Series innings?
I don't know how to necessarily describe that other than just a complete failure and joke. And like it legitimately felt like I was watching my Little League highlights. It was that bad. Yeah. And the fact that that came in the World Series in a do or die game for the Yankees, I mean, that's bad. That's as bad as it gets. And that is a complete, it was a failure by that team. They gave Garrett Cole 5 runs of support and they still lost. Like that is a complete joke. And I feel bad for Cole. I know he had that error where he didn't end up covering first base. Like, that's a rough look too. Don't get me wrong, but it was awful for the Yankees. And now they're going to have to live with that throughout the entire offseason. And based on what I was gathering both from Twitter and talking to people around, like in that clubhouse, it sounded like that mood in that locker room yesterday after the game was really somber and just down. And I mean, and rightfully so. They had a prime opportunity to bring the series back to LA. And if they ended up doing that, being down 3-2 in the World Series here, the pressure would have been squarely on the Dodgers. And they had that opportunity. They let it up in epic fashion, and like, it's a colossal failure. And now it sets up an offseason for the Yankees that is one of the most important in recent franchise history, because they have so many different questions, so many different things that they need to answer. But what's going to be lingering in the back of their minds is that fifth inning, because that is when their season just came to an epic collapse, and really where their season ended.
And look, if you watch this Yankees team all year, two truths have resonated. One is that, hey, going on the road, Yoshinobu Yamamoto was probably going to embarrass them, considering the Yankees typically get spurned in free agency and then get embarrassed by the players that choose other teams. So definitely felt realistic for Yamamoto to just give it to him one more time. But if you've watched the Yankees all year, you knew they were not sound defensively. They were not sound base runners. Fundamentals tended to escape them. So while no one among us starting that inning would have been like, oh, you know what's definitely going to happen? Aaron Judge is going to drop a routine fly ball from Tommy Edman in center field. Nobody would have seen the specifics coming, but every Yankee fan could have told you, okay, it's 5-0, Garrett Cole on the mound, overwhelming likelihood they're going to win this game. I saw someone say the win probability was 89%. I would say it should have been a little higher than even that. But any Yankee fan would have believed you if someone from the future came in and told you, hey, it's going to be like 5-4 at the end of this inning or whatever, and a horrible defensive play was made. I would have been like, yep, that tracks. I mean, that simply tracks, both with how the Yankees have opened the door for their opponents all year long and how the Dodgers take care of teams that open the door for them. So we'll focus on the Yankees first and then go to what's next for the Dodgers, just because I know everybody wants Aaron Boone gone. We heard last night, pretty much as soon as that game ended, that they're picking up his option. The question, I guess, is how long he'll be here. And I'm wondering if the collapse changed anything. But what's next for these Yankees? I mean, a lot of these free agents are going to walk. And I'm not sure if it's people that Yankee fans or Yankee haters are necessarily going to miss from this roster. You've got a decision that has to be made on Anthony Rizzo, Tommy Kahnle entering the open market, Clay Holmes entering the open market, Gleyber Torres, and of course, Alex Verdugo, obviously Tim Hill, and Juan Soto, who's a fairly notable free agent. So of those guys, I mean, Yankees, it would seem, are going to be in competition for Soto, but almost the rest of those people you can say are replaceable and are going to have to be replaced.
Oh, totally. And like, there's going to be so many different changes that are going to be made on this on that roster, just with this team as a whole. It's not going to be Aaron Boone. What Andy Martino reported is right. Like, they're going to pick up his option. Obviously, how that fifth inning played out yesterday, and like just their defensive miscues throughout the entire season, does not look great on a guy like Aaron Boone, just because, I mean, that falls squarely on him, obviously.
I thought it looked fucking awesome, actually.
Yeah, yeah, it's I know you're being sarcastic. Is that how you're coping with all this, Adam?
I honestly had a pretty bad night. It's not going to shock anybody, but yeah, I'm coping hard. It's what we call a defense mechanism here.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm here for you if you need to talk at all. But it's as far as the Yankees go here, it's Boone's going to return. I still think, despite what transpired in the World Series and just some of the things that went wrong this season, I still think he's one of the best managers in baseball. I really do. And he handles what is a really tough place to manage. And there's so many things that come with that job that aren't necessarily part of other jobs elsewhere. I think he handles them beautifully. And I know some people are going to end up getting maybe upset by that, but I think he's a really good manager. You should not forget how good you have it with Aaron Boone, because it could get a lot worse. There's plenty of other teams who can tell you that, because I think if Boone ended up getting let go, there would be a lot of other teams that'd be really like pursuing him hard. So I know you're hurting today, and I know you're upset with Aaron Boone. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But he's a really good manager at the end of the day. So just keep that in the back of your minds. But as far as the roster goes, I mean, they're free agents. I mean, you listed them all. You got Verdugo, you got Torres, you got Clay Holmes, Tommy Canley, you got Tim Hill, you got Juan Soto. And then you also got Luke Weaver, who has a $2.5 million club option. Lou Trevino has a club option as well. I mean, I would fully expect Weaver to have his option picked up. I do think he is an extension candidate. He was brilliant for them this year, and I would look for maybe some conversations to be had there. But Soto is the priority there. And if their offseason is going to be defined by Juan Soto, if they lose Soto, that is an organizational failure. And Cashman is going to get an absolute ton of heat. To me, the Yankees cannot let him leave. There's going to be plenty of competition for his services, and you got to see it yesterday. He's already speaking the free agent lingo. It's very clear that Scott Boras got to him. It did not take long at all, but that is going to be about as fascinating of a free agency as any player not named Shohei Ohtani. Like it's everyone's eyes are going to be all over it. But to me, the Yankees cannot let him leave. Another one, obviously, is Garrett Cole. I mean, is his option? Is he going to pick up his option? Is he going to become a free agent? If he ends up opting out of that contract, and you have Juan Soto and Garrett Cole as free agents, that's tough. Like that's really tough. And I don't know what's going to end up happening there, but this offseason is arguably Brian Cashman's most important since he's been the Yankees' GM. He cannot get this wrong, because if he does get it wrong, then we could be talking about the beginning of the end happening for his tenure in New York. I think it's that pivotal for him.
Well, honestly, that's good news for Yankee fans no matter what happens. who would be satisfied either with a successful execution of the offseason or the end of Brian Cashman's tenure in New York. But the Cole thing is very crazy, too. He's got this bizarre opt-out where if he does, the Yankees can tack on an extra year at the end of it and invalidate the opt-out. But with Soto's money looming, with how Hal Steinbrenner has behaved with money in recent years and the way that he operates with his profits, is that much of a home run that you're just going to say they're going to pay him through age 39 instead of 38 or whatnot? I think it is. But I do think that there's at least a conversation to be had. I think they probably do ultimately handshake it, but it's certainly a conversation. And you mentioned Soto, who's going to be the focus here, and he's going to be the focus of what's next for the Dodgers too, because they're at least a rumored suitor. You hit the nail on the head. I think any Yankee fan was hoping in the aftermath, especially after they just watched the worst baseball game of all time, like, okay, maybe we at least get a glimmer from Soto in the post game. And he's going to say something like, look, I really love my time here. These guys are family, but I have to explore free agency. Or, man, those pinstripes felt great. We're going to see what these teams bring to the table or whatever. No, he was way more disciplined than that. Not in a way that made me think, oh, he's a goner, but just in a way that made me think he's not going to give the Yankees an inch here. We've already known it's going to be all about a precedent-setting contract for Soto, but you're 100% right. He attacked his first real challenge of free agency with a 10 out of 10 execution from the Scott Boras side, playing it straight across the bow, inviting all bidders in, not taking the bait. He was not Garrett Cole in the Boras core hat, as I see in the comments here, but he really did an incredible job playing the field, setting up a very, an offseason where he's telling people to come get me, come want me. And I know these Yankees reporters are going to try to get me to slip up and say something about how I loved hitting in front of Judge, but I'm just not going to do it.
No, he's definitely not going to slip up, because I think Boras and Soto have had their eyes on free agency for a while. I mean, we've seen that with him turning down all these contract extension offers. The most notable one is obviously his $400+ million offer that he had from the Nationals that prompted his trade to the San Diego Padres. But they've had their eyes on this for a while. He was never going to sign an extension before free agency. Like Boras will want to take Juan Soto to free agency. He'll want to beat the present day value that Shohei Ohtani got in free agency. He's going to want to end up having that honor. And if he has to wait out the market as long as possible, he'll do it. We've seen him do it with other free agents. And this is his prized jewel right here. Like, this is as big of a free agent as Boras has had and probably will have. And he's going to want to make sure he gets it right. And we're going to be looking at teams. Look at the Mets, the Yankees, the Phillies, Um, I mean, we saw the Dodgers mentioned. I'll get into. Should I just get into that now?
Yeah, let's do it because look, hey, the Yankees gagged last game, but they also blew it down 3-1 in the series. Best
Yeah.
player in the series was Freddie Freeman. Best team in the series was the Dodgers. Even though the offensive stats are pretty tight, I mean, the Yankees held their own, but not in key moments. The Dodgers have been ridiculed and maligned for too long for postseason failures. They came out and took what they believed was theirs. And I think it's important to note that this was supposed to be a super team, right? Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow. Hard to avoid that. Teoscar Hernandez at the last minute. But they ended up needing every reinforcement they got. They needed to, the rotation was decimated by the end of the year. Jack Flaherty was not a luxury. He was their game one starter in the World Series. Tommy Edman was not a luxury. He was their NLCS MVP. It's a lesson to never stop adding. And with Walker Buehler and Flaherty hitting free agency, Glasnow likely coming back and being fine for next year, and Ohtani pitching at some point. I mean, they're not going to sit back on their laurels. They are going to shop this offseason, and they feel like we haven't had a repeat world champion since the Yankees dynasty. I can't outright predict it the day after the World Series, but I can predict that they deserve to be the betting favorites right now, and they're going to be probably more dangerous on opening day next year than they are right now.
Yeah, I agree. And first of all, it's it's the offseason when we're not even 24 hours into it, and Drew's got Soto and Garrett Cole to the Padres. Good. Thank you, Drew. But yeah, like not Cole, but Soto is going to have so many of these different teams after his services, and I was not surprised whatsoever by John Heyman's report about the Dodgers' interest in Soto. Like, the Dodgers love star players. Soto wants to win, so like naturally, on paper, there it's a good fit. But I think I'm kind of thinking that it'll end up being unlikely that it'll end up happening. Maybe that changes during the offseason. Maybe like an opportunity arises that the Dodgers just can't pass up. But to me, Soto, like, I think he really values being close to his family in the DR, and the Dodgers would not represent that. And then also, if you look at the Dodgers' contracts, I had someone reminding me of this the other day, is Ohtani's heavily deferred. You have Mookie Betts, who's got deferred money. You have Freeman, who's got deferred money as well. I would not imagine that Soto is going to end up being in a hurry to have any deferred money in his contract. And if you end up signing Soto and giving him no deferred money, that could create some issues in that clubhouse. And I think that's a dynamic that the Dodgers have to be really careful of. So I'm thinking that Soto to the Dodgers is unlikely. I think the teams to beat remain either the Mets or the Yankees, in no particular order there. But to me, it's going to present a really interesting battle that I think is going to play right into Boris's hand. Is the Yankees, to me, they can't lose Soto. The Mets, they have an owner in Steve Cohen who can outbid anyone in free agency if he wants a player. And David Stern's made it abundantly clear that he wants, or that he has the ability to go out and spend on any player. And if you have those two battling, the price is only going to go up. And I don't know whose hand that plays into other than Boris's, but it's a good offseason to be Scott Boras. And I think last offseason he got pretty crushed. This offseason, I think he could be in a position to really kind of bounce back.
Yeah. And we've already seen Corbin Burns eyeballing that Dodgers World Series champion post.
Was that Burns' account, though?
If it wasn't Corbin Burns, it really seemed like it was.
It was like, it seems it, because like I saw MLB Trade Rumors retweet it, and there's other people who follow it, and Foul Territories added it as well. So maybe it is, but it's not verified. So I don't know.
Yeah. It is not verified. He has very few, does not tweet often. So, hey, who knows? Maybe it's a fun little troll. But either way, we've seen some action already. Briefly, before we move on to the All-Star questions and plenty of, I don't really want to talk about these Yankee fans who got banned and may have started a new curse by ripping Mookie Betts' hand off. I guess I'll just go ahead and demean them on the podcast. Those guys suck. Like, those are sucky guys. And there was some consternation over ESPN and Jesse Rogers specifically humanizing them a little bit. So I'm not going to compare fan incidents. A lot of fans and a lot of fan bases have done garbage things over the years. These guys deserve to be condemned. But I am curious a little bit about the tone of the coverage, especially this versus the Dodgers and Jerks and Profar just a couple weeks ago. Any thoughts from you on sort of the media angle there and the way that it was covered?
Yeah, I have a few different thoughts on this. Is one, the guy that did that is an absolute clown. Yeah, like, I mean, that's about as tough of a look as humanly possible, and he should be banned for life from Yankee Stadium. I don't think there's any debate about that whatsoever. I think giving him any attention and giving people what he looks like or giving him his name or giving up his name only adds to just like how stupid this is. I feel bad for Jesse Rogers though, because I mean, I looked today, his tweet got 16 million views or 16 million impressions. And I like Jesse. Jesse is a friend. And I also know how Midwesterns speak. And butte is often a word that's used to describe someone who's a piece of work. And as soon as Jesse tweeted that, I saw it like the moment he tweeted it. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly what he's saying. And all of a sudden we look now and he's got thousands of people in his comments. Sure, he's getting DMs. I mean, it's his Twitter right now is just insane. But I knew what Jesse Rogers meant. People are getting upset about that, which, I mean, get a life. Yeah, I feel bad for Jesse, and we should just move on from this because it's we've been talking about this for too long. Yep. It should have been dead after 24 hours. Yeah, we should be talking about baseball, not some idiot fan who's trying to interfere with the game.
And we are never talking about them again. But again,
I don't even know his name. No. I blocked his name from my head.
But as soon as you talk about them, you get people in the comments like, they didn't touch Profar. They could have broken Mookie's. Hey, I get it. But now we're comparing incidents of fan violence to one another. And condemn it all. Get it out of here. Stop going after Jesse Rogers. It's all – nobody is defending – if you're defending these Yankees guys, you're on the wrong side of history. So let's move on to baseball because Jorge Soler has been traded today. And we have great all-star questions. We have questions in the comments to get to as well. But Soler is now an Angel. All of a sudden, shout out to Beyond the Halo. We've got great Angels folks in the Discord, and you can join them if you want insight before anybody else. But Jorge Soler for Griffin Canning, and all the Soler money goes right to the Angels. First of all, hilarious. Second of all, what is your second take on that? Because that's the 2021 World Series MVP, signed with the Giants last offseason. Didn't make it in San Francisco, didn't make it half a year, went to the Braves at the deadline. I guess down the stretch, the Braves didn't like what they saw. And there he is now, a lot of salary relief going to Los Angeles. What's your first reaction here? And how is this happening like 12 hours after the World Series ended?
Yeah, I'm not kidding you. So when I found out about this trade, I legit asked the person who told me about this, trades can happen already? Because, I mean, we're 15 hours away from, or 15 hours removed from the World Series. And I'm thinking, like, there's no way this is true. And all of a sudden I send a couple texts and I get another call. All this, again, while I'm at the gym, I don't know how the heck it happens, but scoops always happen while I'm at the gym. And it was confirmed, it was true, and I sent it. And I was really caught off guard by this because I was not aware of any talks going on. I didn't even know teams could talk at this point. I'm not sure how many people did, but the Angels plan on being aggressive this year. And that is or this offseason, I should say. And this is going to be the first move of, I think, many. But I think this was I would not have done this if I was the Angels. And like, Soler is a proven player. He's got a great pedigree, but you're taking on his full salary and you're parting with a promising young pitcher who I know, I mean, he's had his ups and downs in Anaheim, don't get me wrong. But there's a reason why the Braves wanted Canning. And I think he is a really strong bounce back candidate if he can stay healthy. And it's a deal I really like for Atlanta. And if you look at it, they ended up turning I can't remember who the prospect was that they ended up giving up in the Giants trade. It was an infielder and then also Tyler Matzik in exchange now for Griffin Canning, who is a long-term asset in the rotation. I think that is a really smart move by Alex Anthopoulos. I expect the Braves to continue to try to add, whether it's pitching, whether it's offense. I mean, they're going to try to upgrade everything. But I think it's a really smart move by Anthopoulos, getting out of that salary as well. And yeah, I think strong move, but for the Angels, not a move I would have done. I think that's a pretty rough start to their offseason.
It was just a Matzik and minor league infielder Sabine Ceballos, of course. There you go. That's the name to keep an eye on. Not like Soler is making an exorbitant amount of money, but again, full salary cleared. Big move for the Braves, and they get upside here.
Yeah, exactly. And also, too, it's like another thing that I want to remind people is that the Braves are usually very aggressive in extending players. I'm not saying that they're going to extend Canning right away, but if he performs well, that would not surprise me at all if the Braves end up getting aggressive in trying to do an extension there. That's my thinking there. I know he's only got 1 year remaining on his contract, but I know how Anthopoulos operates, and you got to wonder. I mean, you can't expect every pitching move to be like what happened with Chris Sale last year, but I think he's going to be in a better position to succeed in Atlanta than he was with the Angels.
Before we open the notebook, going to do a couple of all-star questions. I see you. We've got, obviously, a couple of these go together, right? We've got Hunter asking if we're going to see the hot stove active early this year. Everyone is asking that as of today because we're seeing things move. I think that the short answer there is no, this is just an early shocker. Again, like you said, before we even knew that you could open the trade season, we have a trade. So feels like an outlier so far. Scott F asks early predictions on the surprise spender of the offseason. This one intrigued me.
The surprise spender of the offseason. That is a fascinating one. I want to think about that, and then I'll think about that, and then I'll address Hunter's question real quick. I agree with what Adam said. I think the Soler trade is going to be an outlier rather than the new norm. We're going to see plenty of different news about opt-outs and opt-ins and qualifying offers in the coming days. So like I would stay tuned for that. But as far as like actual free agent signings or trades, I think this is going to end up being one that is it's going to be an outlier. But as far as you also asked another question in the Discord that I wanted to address, I think it was actually in the comments here about Quentin Berry being hired by the Chicago Cubs. I think that is a really smart move by Chicago. He was an instrumental part of the Brewers' aggressive base running this past season. He's highly regarded around that organization. Obviously has a ton of familiarity with Craig Counsell, working with him for, I believe, 3 years in Milwaukee. A really savvy move by the Cubs, adding him to as their third base coach. So I think positive reviews all around there for the Cubs. I still want to think about this offseason question because that's a good question.
Well, we can definitely address it in the All-Star channel in the Discord, but I did want to raise it on the pod. And here, Drew, we got your question in the All-Star channel as well. It does make sense for the San Diego Padres. I think a lot of people thought we're going to send the Dodgers packing this postseason. They took a 2-1 lead in their home stadium. They could not close it out. And here are the Dodgers hoisting a trophy at the end of the year. These two teams are intrinsically linked more than the Yankees and Dodgers are. Now that the Dodgers have won it all, they're going to be motivated to repeat, and the Padres are going to be motivated to stop them. We have seen AJ Preller keep his brain moving like a hamster on a wheel. So does he go crazier this offseason knowing the Dodgers won a title? What is the Padres offseason blueprint?
Yeah. As far as the Padres go, last offseason, Preller did not have a lot of flexibility. Like it was very clear that he did not have a lot of room to make significant changes to the major league roster. Trade deadline, he had a little bit more flexibility. And I think with how they performed this year and how they exceeded expectations and how they were on the brink of eliminating the Dodgers, being up 2-1 in that series, I think they're going to give him some more flexibility. I would not be surprised at all if he ends up obviously looking at anything and everything. I do not expect him to go crazy by any means. I wouldn't expect a Juan Soto move or anything like that. But I would not be surprised at all if Preller had conversations with almost anyone on the free agent market. He's always active in the trade market, and he will literally talk to GMs about anything and everything to see what's exactly available. But if there's one thing I know about Preller is he will be aggressive, and I would also look at a Jackson Merrill extension being a possibility as well. I think that's something that organization really needs to consider. And it would not surprise me at all if that contract ended up being around $200 million by the time it's all said and done. And I finally have an answer to the question of what team could be the most surprise spender?
Yeah, just forgotten splurge kings.
I don't know if it's going to be like a gigantic move by any means, but I'm going to go with the Seattle Mariners. They, to me, need to spend significant assets to upgrade that lineup because that lineup was a disaster this year. And if they end up getting a guy like Pete Alonso and then maybe adding some other players as well, I think that's at least a realistic thought. So I think that the Seattle Mariners, to me, are a team that look like they could buy or like maybe buy big. Nothing is promised, obviously, but it makes a lot of sense for them, especially when you have a rotation as good as that one. You need to invest a lot of dollars into that offense because there's no excuse whatsoever that they didn't end up making the postseason with that rotation. And if they end up writing that wrong, then they could end up being a team that's a serious threat to advance deep into the postseason. I mean, their rotation has that much upside to it.
Mariners fans are saying finally, but they need to see it to believe it at this point. Good discussion going on in the comments. Juan Soto, will he decline or accept the qualifying offer? And I really hope he declines. The Yankees could really use that draft pick compensation, but I guess we'll have to wait and see there. We got to open that notebook, Robert. Other topics of conversation, what do you got? Because I know that we've obviously got more notes to go through.
Yeah, I would as I said at the start of the show, the first thing I wanted to mention was that the Giants are indeed going to be hiring Zach Manassian as their GM. He's a very highly regarded baseball person. He was previously with the Brewers, now with the Giants. He was their VP of pro scouting. And the Giants were adamant that they wanted to hire somebody in pro scouting or with a scouting background, I should say. And now it's going to be Posey and Manassian leading the charge there in San Francisco. I think it's a good, strong foundation for them. And I'm curious to see exactly how they perform this offseason and what exactly their flexibility is to address the roster. But I think it's a good start by them. Clayton McCullough is indeed a candidate for the Marlins job. I had heard that at the World Series. And those talks have been going on for a little bit. I would not be surprised whatsoever if that did in fact happen. They're obviously after Will Venable and Albernaz with the Guardians. But Albernaz, as Jeff Passan reported earlier today, he ended up backing out of the running for that job. So kind of left the Marlins sitting at the altar. Not exactly great for them. But Clayton McCullough would be a really strong candidate there. And I do believe he has some ties to Miami. So that would be kind of a going home, I believe, for him. So it's something to watch there. And I think to wrap this up, one of the more intriguing option decisions to watch is going to be Nathan Eovaldi. I am very curious to see what he ends up doing because he's got a $20 million option that he's got to figure out. My guess is that he's going to opt out of his contract to become a free agent. I think that's something to watch in the coming days, but my guess is he opts out.
Well. It's just the start of the offseason. We will have a ton more for all of you. We appreciate you joining us on this Thursday after the World Series for the Adam Weinrib Depression Show. But there will be so much more to talk about when we're back on Monday, 3:30 Eastern. Join us in the Discord. Get those questions in. Join us in the comments. Get those questions in. We would love to address them on Monday's show, which is probably going to be more of a blowout mailbag. And I would anticipate, I don't know how quickly we're going to be moving. I don't know if we're going to get another Jorge Soler trade, as Robert noted, but we're going to get some more moves. We're going to get some more to discuss over the weekend. We'll be right back here on Monday to talk it out. Robert Murray, thank you so much for joining me as always.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who tuned in for this show. It was a good one. The off season is here. Could not recommend more watching these shows and joining the Discord, getting all the insight, because who knows, maybe I end up giving you the scoops before I end up dropping them, because that is one of the perks you have from watching the show and joining the Discord. Could not recommend it more, but we will see everyone back here on Monday. And then I'll be heading to the GM meetings in San Antonio. So let's go.
San Antonio, nice city, underrated venue.
I've never been, so I'm excited to do that. And maybe I run into Greg Popovich. Who knows?
Good Mexican, good river walk. There's some good food in San Antonio. Very jealous. But we are going to be doing some great shows, both pre and post and during GM meetings. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Thank you, everybody.